Hello everyone, this is Grace. It is August the 8th, 2022, and we are continuing our study on the Passover. We're going to go ahead and jump right into Exodus 12. Exodus 12 is where we are given the instructions on how to keep the Passover. So we're going to go through most of Exodus 12. Let's go ahead and get started. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month ye shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. One of the things that we're going to fall upon as we read through Exodus 12 is that the Passover is a memorial to Christ. It's his memorial. So it's not a big thing that it starts at the beginning of the year to celebrate him and his sacrifice. Let me read this again because I think I stopped mid-sentence. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month ye shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. Now this part is perfectly fine. This is just as we've been taught the Passover. Each person takes a lamb for the household. Each man is going to sacrifice a lamb for the Passover. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue reading. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Okay, we have some problems here. But first, I want you to consider what's being said here. We're going to take everything that we just learned here and we're going to add it to the first part of this sentence. Now there's a semicolon here, so this is supposed to be extra information. But if we take what we learned here, where every man is supposed to have a lamb per household, which is what we were told. And then we read this first part, and if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next into the house take it according to the number of the souls. You see, this makes no sense. This makes no sense because they just told us a qualifier without telling us what qualifies as being too little. It's as if we're in, say, I have a crowd of people, and I say every person is supposed to have a piece of paper. The piece of paper can be anything, registration, a ticket, whatever you want it to be. But every person should have a piece of paper. And then I follow that after everyone's gotten a piece of paper, and everyone's following along, I say, now, if your family's too little to have that piece of paper, you need to join with the person next to you. No one's going to know what I'm talking about because I haven't given a qualification for what is too big or what is too little. All I said was everyone is supposed to take a piece of paper. You see how that's illogical? It's illogical because the second part of the sentence was added on. This is actually an accurate sentence, but it's accurate for the second part of the Passover. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. The lamb is not eaten. It is not. It is not eaten. That is a burnt sacrifice. They flayed the skin. They were able to keep the skin of the lamb. That's it. Everything else is burnt. Okay? Now, let's consider what this up here is saying. You have for the lamb here. 1, 2, 3, 4 words make up that sentence. And you have for the lamb here. And it's only 2 words. And they're different. That's because this doesn't say for the lamb. This is saying, and if the household be too poor. And then this part here and his neighbor next to his house is correct. But none of the rest of this is correct. I'll show you what I came up with. Now, they did change this a little, so I'm going to change it as well. And if the household be too little for the lamb, then you have your 4 words that are connected to it. Let him and his neighbor next into this house take it according to their number of the souls. This be too little is be too poor. It's the same word. It means to lessen or decrease. That word can be translated as little but it means to be too poor. For or from, for the lamb is then or out of. When something comes from something, it comes out of. Then out of those to be or exist, out of that flock, out of those of the flock of his neighbor next to his house, he shall take the worth or the value of the creature. Now, keep in mind that this is not the way I believe it was originally written. Actually, let me just show you now how I believe it should have been written. And I believe they took this word take out. And the reason why is because of this just isn't written in the style of the Old Testament. It would have to have this word take in here in order to be written in the style of the Old Testament. And that'll fix it. It fixes it for me. It's not perfect still, but it fixes it for me. I think they just took the word take out and then they left the rest of it intact. And so I'm going to show you how I believe, how I would interpret it. And if the household be too poor, he shall take out of those of the flock of his neighbor next to his house, or receive the worth of the creature, and then thereof would have been at the end. Okay, so this is why, and we're going to look at the examples later as we progress through this study. We're going to look at the examples, and what you're going to see is that kings and the rich and all kinds of people are going to be donating lambs for the sacrifice, because the way that I interpreted it, that the last interpretation, it makes every man responsible for his brethren to have a lamb. In most of the sacrificial system, you see that you can bring an expensive product, or you can bring, it gets less and less expensive depending upon how poor you are. You can bring several bulls, or you can bring a bird or a dove. Or if you can't afford, even if you can't find a bird or a dove, you can bring some flour, a little bit of meal, depending upon your wealth. There was no substitute for the Passover. On the Passover, everyone had to have a lamb. And since you had rich and you had poor, it was everyone had to be accountable for their brethren. And so when you look at the examples that are given in the Passover, what you find is that kings would donate thousands upon thousands. I think in one case, one of the kings that we're going to look at, I think he said he donated, don't hold me to this, it may have been 30,000 people that attended, but I think he may have donated like 30,000 sacrifices, the lambs and the second part. And then other people would come of wealth, and they would bring thousands of sacrifices as well, because everyone was accountable for their brethren, because everyone had to have a lamb. There was no substitute when it came to the Passover. And that's what this is saying. As far as eating it, we're gonna have to revisit this when we get to the second part, because I can't prove that it doesn't really belong here if it doesn't belong. I can just tell you it doesn't belong, but I can show you where they do eat. They are going to eat the meat offering. They eat the meat offering. They don't eat the sacrificial lamb. And they don't eat it in examples either. It's called a burnt offering. In the burnt offering, you flay the skin. You get to keep the skin. And everything else is burnt up. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep, from the goats. Okay, two things here. First of all, I wasn't able to find, I didn't really look, to be honest with you. I didn't really look, but I wasn't able to find anything that said that the male had to be the firstborn. It just had to be a male under a year old, of the first year old. A male of the first year. Second thing about this is that it could not be a goat. Now, if we were to do a search on goats, what you're going to see is there's a pattern with the goats. When we look at the goats, it's going to say over and over, a goat for a sin offering, 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 a goat for a sin offering. That would be fine, except when you compare, hold on, let's look at this first. So, Trying to find a sacrifice. Okay, it doesn't tell us there. Doesn't tell us there either. Here we go. Or if his sin is for a sin offering, a goat. Sin, goat. Trespass or sin, a goat. Okay, this is a burnt offering. But of course, hold on a moment. Let me finish this first. Let's finish this. A goat for a sin offering. A goat for a sin offering. A goat for a sin offering. These are all in number 7, so we can skip through those. A goat for a sin offering. A goat of the first year for a sin offering. Goat for a sin offering. A goat for a sin offering. It messes up all kinds of patterns if you try to put that goat in there. And another thing I did notice, which I kept starting to tell you before, is that when we read through these scriptures, you're going to see another pattern. You're going to see when they talk about the burnt offering, they're going to say a lamb, 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 a lamb. They're always going to use the word lamb or sheep. And then tucked in at the very end, you'll see something like this, or a goat. Added on at the very end. They just added it on. You cannot use goat as a substitute for the lamb in the Passover. Cannot be done. It's not right. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, this word here means sheep. But this word up here, where is it at? The 7716 does not mean sheep. That means it's a grazer or something like that. Hold on. It grazes, pushing out to graze. A goat is not a grazing animal. Now, my father, I can't remember if he's 84 and he'll be 85 this year, he's 84, he'll be 85 this year, and he's Southern. He's not a Southerner, but he was raised down south, and then he moved up here. So he used to tell us about the goats when we were young. And he would say over and over, a goat will eat anything. And he had this joke that he would always tell. He would say, a goat will eat a tin can. He just chuckled to himself. He had no idea, me being a young girl, I didn't get the joke. And I believed it for most of my life. So I called him up and just to check my memory. And he assured me, no, goats eat everything. And yes, he got to tell his joke one more time about a goat eating a tin can. But the point is that they're not grazers. They eat everything. Yeah, they'll eat grass, but they'll eat everything else too. Sheep eat grass. And my father was telling me not only do they eat grass, they'll eat the root. They eat all the way down to the root, to where if the grass does grow again, it'll take a very long time. Because they'll eat, if you just leave them in that one spot, they'll eat the very root of grass. They'll eat all of it. You won't have a lawn. But goats aren't grazers. They don't meet this qualification up here. And so they would automatically put in a lamb. So when we read, you're going to see for a lamb, a lamb, a lamb, a lamb, a lamb. And then here it'll say sheep when you see the word sheep. But goat, it cannot be substituted for a goat. There's something they added in for their own personal thing. Probably has something to do. Of course, we know who rules this world. So that's his offering, the goat. So he plucked it in there for good measure, I guess, just to make sure. I don't know. But it doesn't belong. It messes up the patterns of everything. I wasn't even really looking for it, to be honest. I just checked it because I thought it was odd, because I remembered what my father was saying about the goats, and it doesn't fit this description. And I was like, hold on. So I checked it, and I saw over and over. Well, one of the things I did in order to try and resolve the conflict that this had with our study on the beginning of the day, or when a day begins, was I of course started looking for patterns. And so that was just one of the patterns that I noticed. A goat is not offered as a Passover sacrifice. It's a sin offering. Almost all of the time, I didn't check it, but almost all of the time I read it, it was a sin offering. And you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. Now, I did a video about the assembly because I didn't want to have to explain in this video that an assembly is a group of leaders. This is not what we were taught. We were not taught that the leaders sacrificed the Passover lamb, and they didn't. They did not sacrifice the Passover lambs. However, this is a correct statement, but it applies to the second Passover. And you're going to see that it actually works out. I mean, if you can puzzle it together, it actually kind of works out. I don't really know how to explain it. We just have to get there, I guess, and you have to see for yourself. But it works out. It's the assembly that sacrifices the meat offering. But just like the sacrificial system, just like when we were taught about the burnt offering, the person would kill the burnt offering, and then his meat offering would be the Levites, and the priests would take care of that. That's what happens. That's what's going to happen here on the Passover. They shall kill it in the evening. So yeah, they kill it at noon, before the end of the day, because it's all done on the 14th. Now, of course, it's going to go over because they had hundreds of thousands. They had hundreds of thousands of people that they were sacrificing for, so it would go well into the night. But it wasn't the Passover lamb. This was the meat offering, the thanks offering. So they're keeping it to the 14th day of the same month. That's correct. But the whole assembly didn't kill it. Each man killed their own sacrifice. And then it was turned over to the Levites, or to the priests. I can't remember which one handles it. I think it was the priests. The priests would do the work from there. I have to look that part up still. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper door of the houses wherein they shall eat it. No. That's not what that really says. This is what they told us, of course, but this is not what it says. Let's look and see what it says. Okay. All right. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper door posts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. This part is correct. And they shall take of the blood and put, this word and strike means to give. They're going to give it. So they're going to put it. Now, why did I say put it in a bowl? I said put it in a bowl because as we read down, I think it's verse 21, but I'm not certain. As we read down, we're going to see that the assembly, the leadership, is going to be charged with taking the hyssop and dipping it in a bowl, the bowl of blood, and they're going to paint it on the door, the side posts. So I took a cue from where they were dipping the hyssop in the blood and later on in the chapter, and I just put it in a bowl here. So they take it and they're not pouring it, they're not striking it, they're putting it in a bowl upon the doorpost. And you can leave this in there as well and you can word it, but It's going to be upon the two side posts, which is upon the door, which is upon the two side posts of the houses wherein they shall eat. Not it. You don't eat the lamb. They just added that. Wherein they shall eat, period. That's where they're going to eat the feast. But they're not eating this. They are not. And they shall eat the flesh, and they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Okay. The flesh, and we spoke about this in the first video. There are two fleshes. This is they shall eat that flesh, the second flesh, not the first one. In that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread. And that night is a qualifier as well. It's that night. It doesn't necessarily have to be that night. They're going to eat it that day. Roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. This word raw, because I have it highlighted, you can probably guess it does not mean raw. This word is used one time in the Bible. It has one occurrence. So basically they could say it meant anything they wanted it to mean. But the original meaning they left in there. In the sense of harshness, from refusal. Look at the root word. To refuse, forbid, dissuade, or neutralize, break, disallow, discourage has nothing at all to do with raw. It has nothing to do with raw. Eat not of it, period. And you better not, nor dare. Because it's said with harshness. So I was trying to be harsh when I said that. Don't you dare. Sodden it at all with water. But roast it with fire, his head with his legs, and the purtenance thereof. Let's look at that. And then we will, I think we're going to stop there. Let's see. Let's just go ahead and look at this. How it's broken up. How it's broken down. Okay. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. Eat not of it, period. You don't eat the Passover lamb. And don't you dare. Because I had to put a little harshness in there. And I don't know the word. I don't know the word. And I wasn't trying to do an etymology on something that I could just fill in the blank. Extra work. And I didn't need that for this study. So don't you dare boil it. That's what that word means, boil. Then they have the second word, which they combine with this. Now, one of the things that about the boil, the simmer, this means to seethe or simmer. We know it is simmer, but it says seethe in the Bible. One of the things about the boiling, the simmering, and the roasting is that it implies that they can be done with or without water, because it'll say roast with fire. It'll say simmer with water. You see? So it implies, and we're going to see that they're going to use simmer with fire in one of the examples. And so that's why I wanted to point that out, because simmer, of course, is included. We know it's part of boil. It's done with water. But when they say it's done with fire, then same thing with roast. We know roast is done with fire. But I would imagine they could say roasted with water some kind of way, even though I don't know how you do that. But they always say roast with fire. So let me read this again. Eat not of it. Eat not of it. And don't you dare boil it or simmer it in water. But roast with fire his head with his legs, with the purtenance, and with the purtenance thereof. That's the proper translation for that sentence. So and you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. Now, that makes sense to me. I don't have a problem with that as far as the burnt offering. I didn't even question it, to be honest with you, until now. I'm trying to just kind of read and think at the same time. So I never even questioned this. So we're at 25 minutes. We're going to leave it here. Oh, let's go ahead and read this. I don't think I found a problem. Doesn't look as though I found a problem with this either, other than haste. Haste does not mean haste, but I'm hoping to do a video on that separately to show that it does not mean haste. And thus shall ye eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your... No, we're going to have to do this later because it has shall ye eat it. You don't eat it. So we're going to leave off at verse 10, and we'll come back and start at verse 11. But that's all I have to say on this video. I'll see you in the next one.